What's going on, everyone? Future Dan here, once again, and I realized going through the Introduction to Scikit-Learn section that there's a lot of warnings that come up. More specifically, let me show you what actually goes on. So if we go here, we'll instantiate a random forest classifier as CLF. Now, if you don't understand what's going on just yet, don't worry, this is all covered in the Scikit-Learn section. But I thought I'd just show you what actually happens and different ways that we can fix it. So when these things come up in your own work, you might have a way of approaching them. So if I just shift on enter on this cell, shift on enter on this cell, and then shift and enter on this cell, you see I get this warning pop up. So the reason why this warning pops up is because it's telling me the default value of n estimators will change from 10 in version 0.20 to 100 in 0.22. And now n estimators is a parameter in random forest classifier. So if we go here, this is one way to fix it. If I set this to 100, because the default is 10, right? That's the default. I set this to 100. This little warning, this red warning will go away. There we go. That goes away. But if I set that back to what it was, the default, so passing nothing, and then I run it again, the warning's going to come back. Now, there's one way to fix this pretty quickly. It's to do what the warning says. We've just seen that. The other way is if we come here. Now, this goes for all warnings, so aka anything that you see in red in Jupyter Notebook output. This is one way to solve all of them. Well, not solve all of them, but you will see it happen. So import warnings. So we'll import the Python warnings module. And then we go warnings.filter warnings. Oh, we need to pass it some sort of variable. Now there's one we can do here, which is ignore. So essentially what this is going to do is ignore all of the warnings that appear. So if there's a warning like this red thing, it's going to just ignore it so it won't appear in our Jupyter Notebook. Ready? Gone. But that's kind of a band-aid solution, right? Like if we're just ignoring the warnings, what if the warning was actually telling us something significant? The reason why you use ignore is if you'd been through your notebook, if you're doing your work and you figured, okay, these warnings aren't very helpful because I know what I'm doing works and I don't need these warnings. So that's where you might use warnings.filter warnings and ignore them all. If you want to reset this, you can set it back to default. Shift and enter, shift and enter. Now we'll get the warning back. And so if we read here, the default value of n estimators will change from 10 in version 0.20 to 100 in version 0.22. So what this is saying is that if we go here, we follow this path, it goes sklearn ensemble forest.py, future warning. So this means from sklearn ensemble import random forest classifier, which is here, sklearn ensemble random forest or forest.py, that's where they write random forest classifier in that Python module. And now this will be different depending on what warning you're getting, right? We're getting this specific warning because we're dealing with random forest classifier. And again, if this looks confusing, I understand it might be at this time, but when you go through the Introduction to Scikit-Learn section, you'll see these warnings come up. What we're sort of going through here now goes for any type of warning. So you can follow the path here and it'll output some kind of warning. These are all ways that you can approach it to fix it. So what if we check our scikit-learn version, so import sklearn, and then we go sklearn.get version has no, So if we go here, how to tell what version of scikit-learn you're running, should be something like get version. Installing scikit-learn. We check the scikit-learn documentation, Mac OS, Conda, so that's me here. Scikit-learn, show versions. I'm seeing what version of scikit-learn I have. So if we go show versions. Wonderful, so if we go through it, Python dependencies, so we're running Python 3.75, yep, and we have sklearn version 0.21.3. And so, where this error is arising, where this warning is coming from, is because in version 0.2 up to 0.22 of scikit-learn, it's going to raise this warning. So in 0.22 of scikit-learn, so version 0.22, above our version, this warning will go away because the default number of n estimators for random forest classifier will be 100. So how would we upgrade our version of scikit-learn and thus get rid of the warning? So we've seen how to create a Conda environment, but how would we upgrade a package that's in our Conda environment? Well, let's go back to terminal. So see here, we've got our notebook server running. Going to open up a new terminal window. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change directory. So actually, cd current project. So ML course, sample project, wonderful. And if I ls there, I can see all of the notebooks that I've been working on. Wonderful. And there's my environment folder there. So what I'm going to do is, because I want to upgrade something within the Conda environment, I'm going to activate, Conda activate, and it's going to be users for me /Daniel /desktop /ML course /sample project /env. Beautiful. So now we've activated our environment. We've seen this done before. So if I go Conda list, that's going to show me all the packages I currently have. Scikit-learn version 0.21.3. Now, how would I get that? If we come back to the notebook, how would I get that to version 0.22? So what we might do is check out the Conda documentation. Conda package management. We go here. Managing packages, beautiful. So this is the Conda documentation for how we might manage our packages in our environment, which is what we want to do in this case. We want to see if we can upgrade scikit-learn. And again, this will go for any package that you run. In this case, specific case, we're just using scikit-learn as an example. So here's some documentation for managing packages. There's a fair bit here. What we might do is go straight down to updating packages. Beautiful. So if we read the documentation, now this is, again, one of the first steps you might take, is if you're facing a problem like this, you might search something like this, future warning. Google search that, and it might tell you something like you might need to upgrade your package. And this is where you might come after that, is that you go to the Conda documentation. These are all workflow steps that in the beginning, they seem like a lot and they seem like, whoa, there's so much going on here. But as you sort of practice and practice and practice, you get really good at searching for the answers for yourself. So to upgrade a specific package, Conda update BioPython. So maybe we just try that. In our case, we want to upgrade scikit-learn. So if we come back, so if we go Conda update scikit-learn and see what happens. We'll let this run its thing. Okay, so we'll expand this window so we get everything on the same line. So it's going to be added/updated specs scikit-learn. The following packages will be updated. It doesn't list scikit-learn there. That's interesting, but let's run that with a Y and see what happens. Okay, now if we go Conda info, we can just go Conda list. And if you want to see the specific information about one package, you can just write its name. We want to find out about scikit-learn. We're still running version 0.21.3. Now what could we do with that? Well, if we look in here, if we wanted to find more information about what scikit-learn packages are available from Conda, we might go Conda, and the reason why I know what to look for is because I've had practice with this, but you might need to do a little bit more searching if you're not aware of this, but I'll just tell you in this case. So if we go searching for packages, to see if a specific package, such as SciPy, is available for installation, run this. Okay, so Conda search SciPy. So what we might do is go Conda search scikit-learn. And what this will show us, the Conda search function, is what versions of scikit-learn are available from Conda. Because what are we after? We come back to our notebook. We're after version 0.22. Let's figure out how to get that. Whoa. Okay, so we've got a whole bunch. What we might do is there's a better way of finding this. So if we go Conda search scikit-learn, we want some info about that. So we can pass it the info tag. Conda search scikit-learn --info. This will output the same thing, but with a bit more information. So we can see here, it's printed out scikit-learn version 0.22, and that's the one we're after. So what it's going to tell us here is the different dependencies. So what this version of scikit-learn relies on. So unless our environment has these packages, we won't be able to install 0.22. And in my case, I've figured out that my Python version, so see here what this is saying is you need to have a Python version greater than 3.6 but less than 3.7. So if I check my current environment and I go conda list Python, I can see my version of Python is 3.7.5. Okay. So that is the reason why when I install scikit-learn using conda, I don't get version 0.22, because I'm using a version of Python that is incompatible with this version of scikit-learn. Does that make sense? So when you're setting up an environment, the way conda works is it kind of makes sure behind the scenes, all of the packages and dependencies, all of these tools that you install work well with each other. So it's really saving us here by not letting us install scikit-learn 0.22 because the developers of scikit-learn have uploaded it to Anaconda and said, hey, these versions here, between these two numbers, are the only versions that will work fully and properly with this version of scikit-learn. So one way we can do this is to uninstall some of the dependencies that scikit-learn relies on and then reinstall them with specific version numbers. That's a fair bit of talking there, but let's see it in action. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to uninstall some of the things that scikit-learn depends on, so like NumPy and Python, and then reinstall them with specific version numbers. So conda uninstall. To uninstall a package, we go conda uninstall and then the package name. So we're going to uninstall scikit-learn, and then we're going to uninstall Python. And that should actually be enough. So conda uninstall scikit-learn uninstall Python. Let's see what happens when we do that. Yes. Wonderful. So what that's done is we can read up here. So the following packages will be removed, a fair few because we've removed Python and scikit-learn at the same time. So pandas gets removed, NumPy gets removed because, as I said, conda will behind the scenes make sure that your dependencies all work with each other. So if we remove Python, we don't have access to NumPy because NumPy requires Python. Even though we didn't type in conda uninstall NumPy, it gets removed because what it depends on got removed. So now we go back to our notebook and we try to run our import functions. They still work because our kernel is still active, but if we were to go here, restart, so basically just restarting our notebook from scratch, and if we were to hit Shift Enter here, we're going to get some errors because our current active environment, we've just uninstalled all of these, NumPy, pandas, matplotlib, etc., etc. See here we're getting a kernel error. So what we'll do is we'll come back here and we'll go conda install. Now we want a specific version of Python. We want to go conda install Python 3.6.9. Wonderful. And we want scikit-learn version 0.22. And we want to reinstall matplotlib, NumPy, and pandas, as well as Jupyter, because a lot of different packages got removed here. So essentially we're rebuilding our environment with specific versions of packages that we want. So we're going to hit yes. And again, this may take a little while the environment conda installs these packages. So we'll fast forward the video until this is done. Wonderful. So that's reinstalled certain packages with certain values. So now what we'll do is if we go conda list scikit-learn, we'll check the version that we have. Oh, even made a typo, and conda's smart enough to realize what I was after. Beautiful. So now, because we've passed the version number that we wanted to install by setting scikit-learn equal to 0.22, conda has installed version 0.22 for us. But the reason it did that was because we also did the same thing for Python. Now, we installed a version of Python in our environment, 3.6.9, that was compatible with version 0.22. And so the way to check this, we could come back to our notebook. We'll see if we restart our kernel. We may have to reactivate our Jupyter Notebook server because we've reset all the parameters, but actually we might not. We might get away with this. So if we try to import all the standard inputs here, might take a little while because we've uninstalled them and reinstalled them. Beautiful. So that took about a minute or so because we just reinstalled all of these packages. So when you're first importing them into a Jupyter Notebook, it'll take a little while. So then if we run these cells, for now, don't worry too much if you don't know what's going on. We're going to go through this in the entire scikit-learn section. We don't want to filter any warnings, so we'll comment that out. We want to import. Remember, we ran this cell before, and this one again. And we don't need to run this cell anymore, so we'll escape that and press X to remove it. And now, this is saved from before. So previously when we ran this cell, it produced a warning. But now, since we've upgraded to version 0.22, we cross our fingers, that warning shouldn't be there. And we're kind of waiting for these cells here to run. So if we run this one, this is going to import the random forest classifier. Oh, we've set nestimate is equal to 100, so we might have to delete that. Okay, so we're going to rerun these three cells. As you can see, the warning is not there, but we did run this one with nestimate is equal to 100. So if we run this, we've passed nothing there. Run this, and now previously we would have got a warning if we ran this cell, but we don't. See, because now we're using scikit-learn version 0.22. If we hit Shift-Tab on this, we can see that nestimators has changed to equal 100. That was a fairly in-depth video. There was a fair few steps there, but the takeaways here to remember is that when you're experiencing warnings, there's a couple of different ways you can deal with them. You can use the warnings package, and you can either ignore them. Hitting that will ensure that there's no warnings that pop up when you run your Jupyter Notebook cells, but sometimes warnings can be helpful, so maybe you want to reset it back to default, and then the warnings will show up as they come in. And then if you figure out maybe you need to upgrade or change some of the dependencies, the packages that you're using within Conda, you can do that. So managing packages in the Conda documentation, that's where you want to go next. And if you run Conda update BioPython or scikit-learn in our case and it doesn't work, it may be because some of the other packages, the other tools that you're using in Conda are using different version numbers. And we saw that in here before, when we checked the version of Python that we were using, and we had 3.7 point something, which was incompatible with version 0.22 of scikit-learn. So the way to fix that was we did conda uninstall and then packages, so whichever packages you wanted to remove, and then to fix it, we did conda install package and then set it to a specific version number. So in our case, it was scikit-learn, and we wanted version 0.22, so we set it to 0.22. That's one of the workflows that you can use when you're running into dependency issues is, first of all, check the documentation, try it out, see if it works, and then second of all, if it's not working, uninstall the package that's broken and reinstall it. So now, once you go through the introduction to scikit-learn section, if you come across warnings, you'll know how they appear, why they appear. It's because something's going on. You know how to filter them using the warnings module, and you know how to upgrade and change different packages using Conda if need be.